Kind of a decent camera. Palo Santo. If you've never burned Palo Santo, you're missing out. And what's up, Mike? And we've got a little bit of incense going too. See? So we have this. Maybe it's backwards. Maybe I need to write it backwards. Maybe it's forwards to you. I'm not sure. I'm gonna try out today offering at least one session. So anybody who would like to call or Zoom chat or Skype, spirit to spirit talk, session, sharing, and I will have it as a donation-based trade. So you can donate money or you can donate anything. You can even donate a promise to help somebody else out. This is experimental. But if you'd like to donate money, then at the end of the session, we will. I'll give you Venmo, PayPal, GoFundMe, whichever. I've got a few things in the works. But it will be, yeah, spirit to spirit session. So if you'd like to talk about literally anything, self-work, your own path, anything and everything, that will be open after the session. So if you'd like to do that, then email me during, and we'll get that going afterward. My email is also in the description, and I'll also write it in the comments. Yeah, it's a very beautiful day. So it's in the text box below the video, and it's also in the chat itself. If you'd like to participate in that, send me an email. Donation based. So today is going to be slightly different as far as this particular show is going to happen. And I'm just going to read a book that was recommended to me by somebody on my Twitter feed. His name's Jeff Sekarak. In fact, I will be able to show you him here. So let's go to Twitter. Here he is. Master of minimalism. And he's also into fitness, staying healthy. Get back to nature. when all is turned backwards and morality's bent, it's okay to opt out and live in a tent. So he has a small plot of land, and he has a little house that he built, very small, very affordable, and he lives on/off the land. And he recommended this little book right here, which I'm going to narrate. Now, I know there possibly could be some copyright issues, and there always are whenever you display somebody else's work, but being that this guy is a minimalist and a natural living person, what is his name? The person who wrote this book is named, let's see, John Venezia. Maybe I'll try and contact him as well after and see if we can connect and see if I can get some tips and advice. So essentially, and you guys already know this, guys and girls, we're pushing towards getting a piece of land and sticking a trailer or a motorhome, not a tent. We want to have some sort of structural protection, but we want to get a piece of land, and land is cheap. Even here in Oregon, there's decent land, a couple acres for like $6,000, which even if you're financing, it's going to be $100 a month. It's going to be $150 a month, something like that. And then we'll also invest in a motorhome or a trailer, something to live in, something that has electricity and facilities, bathroom, sink, all that stuff. And we'll just plop that on the land and start saving $950 a month. Or rather, we won't have to come up with $950 a month to stay inside of something like this. So that's what we're moving towards. And also, let's check on the fundraiser. This is going to be helpful as well. To the efforts. Another way to support the channel and our movements. Thank you to everyone who's donated so far. We have 4 donations. Jennifer Collins, Susie McCormick for 20, Anonymous for 10, and Jonathan Moss donated 25. And we're at 60. 5,000 is the goal. It's the same, it's all toward the same effort. And the effort is getting land of our own and putting a thing on there, putting a motorhome or something. And then just building that out and joining, in spirit at least, the rest of the community that is working towards that. As the civilized metal city, metal forest world descends into chaos and silly bullshit. This is where our movements are going to go. Mike, My Skies 5D, already knows somewhat of this lifestyle as he's been doing it for the past few years, to some extent. Just being in nature a lot of the time. Fabian up north in Canada, he's been living in his own off the land / he's got his drums in his cave, in his water cave, little cave with a lake in it. So I want to join with the other people who realize that the cities are poisonous and they're getting worse day to day. And we would like to not only join in those efforts, but also provide a living example of how you get from something like this, paying for an apartment, paying $1,000 a month for an apartment, to something like that, where overhead is virtually non-existent. Hey, Regina. Thanks for joining. From the UK. Cool. Yeah, welcome everybody. Okay, so this is the fundraiser again. If you'd like to support this way, that would be great. I'll put the link for that in the comments as well. And now we're going to go on to the reading. If you'd like to have a session afterward, send me an email, gapawa1985@gmail.com. And donation is encouraged, but it's also optional, so if you just like to chat and you don't have any funds, you're also free to take advantage of that. So this is called Off-Grid. It's available. It is available on Amazon. It's 99 cents. I got this onto my, can't see it too well, but I got this onto my iPhone Kindle for 99 cents, and any of you can download this if you want. Jeff recommended this when you're getting ready to move into off-grid living. Off-Grid, a guide to living free, written and illustrated by John Venezia. This was written in 2013. Dedicated to planet Earth, who cries while few listen. It's not super long, it's like 70 pages. And they are iPhone pages, so it shouldn't take too terribly long. Chapter 1. Independence. Conventional people are jolly and reckless, feasting on worldly things, and carrying on as though every day was the beginning of spring. I remain uncommitted, like an innocent child, lost, quietly drifting, unattached to ideas, places, and things. Everyone else takes their place and does their job. I remain natural, wild, and free. That's Lao Tzu. It seems America and the rest of the world have been given their wake-up call. Remember, this was written in 2013, not 2020. Things have slightly changed since then. No longer would the old vision of life hold strong as tomorrow's mode. With banks collapsing and the dollar weakening, the middle class parts to either side of wealth or poverty. It seems America has less to offer the cause of freedom today than it did in the past. Let us begin with who is the slave in modern times. They are those who are dependent on everything. Most of us are slaves to some degree, rich or poor. If you depend on others for your basic survival needs, your well-being is at the mercy of those individuals. Utility companies, food distributors, housing, and jobs are just a few worth mentioning. Otherwise, if you do not produce these things for yourself, you are subject to pay those who provide you with these goods or services. If they raise the price of the product, you can do very little about it. So next we must consider who the free man is. The free man is not a rich man, for even the rich are beholden to the rising cost of living, global trends, and the imposition of government and taxes. Those who have the means to produce for themselves a variety of essentials, such as power, fuel, water, and food, are much closer to freedom. Those who have no debt, rent, or mortgage. No wealth can compete with the modest, self-sufficient farmer when there's no food left on the grocery store shelf. And that's a very real reality. That's a very possible reality that we're moving towards right at this very moment. The Hopi people of northern Arizona are perhaps our best model on this subject. I have great respect for these people, their values, and traditions. They have survived in the same region for over 1,000 years by living a simple life. The following pages are an outline of what true and basic freedom might entail. How to live another way. More healthy, relaxed, and less stressed. A way that is less impacted by the ups and downs of politics, financial markets, and federal interest rates. A way for any human to live free. A way that has been lived for thousands of years and continues to in many parts of the world today. I have been living my version of this ancient way for some years now. I was raised in a suburb of Phoenix, Arizona, a concrete jungle. I knew nothing about living off the land, but I was willing to try. I will suggest the best possible options for you to step into a life of freedom and self-sustainable living. I will also provide you with some of my personal experiences. Where would the Native Americans be today if they would have been allowed to integrate on their own accord? The Hopi people are some of the last Native Americans practicing their old ways and traditions. The government has done it all to westernize the Hopi and has almost succeeded. They are currently a divided people with a small portion remaining traditional. What if the white man would have respected the native brother? We as Americans left England in search of freedom from an oppressive, taxing, and enslaving royal government. We may have appreciated the native ways of living life and served to improve on that foundation. The power of simplicity is a key role in freedom. They took only what they needed. They were not a people of mass consumption, but rather one of modesty. It would seem ridiculous for a lion to slaughter one gazelle after another, stacking them up like trophies, while only taking a small bite every now and then. Yet this is what the celebrated first world nations have come to endorse. At this point, most of the educated world will understand we cannot continue down the road of endless consumption. However, many poor nations are just beginning the life of consumerism, leaving their simple, self-sufficient lives in pursuit of the collapsing American dream. As George Carlin would say, it's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. The idea of living in harmony with nature need not be dead. Any people in any presumed free nation may adopt this mode of living. Even those in non-free nations would greatly benefit from self-sustaining principles. The ancient path is always waiting the humble man. By using the ancient philosophies of past man and infusing them with liberating technologies, we can begin picking up the pieces where our people of the past left off. We have rebuilt England in America. Little has changed. America resembles England, and our presidents may as well wear a crown. What if we returned to the old path? Improved on the foundation that sustained the Hopi Indians on this continent for the last 1,000 years. Is it too late? The following pages are a prescription or a formula intended to heal or cure a certain problem. The problem is slavery. A modern system of slavery so ingenious the slaves don't even know they are slaves. Those committed to freedom and personal life changes will find these subjects easy to understand. You will prosper on the simplicity and security of a simple life. When families can provide their own food, power, and water, they can release the stranglehold that is held by the individuals who only seek to profit and gain from their existence. For most of us starting out life, it seems there are few options: poor, middle class, and rich. All part of some class system, caste system, or slave system. How about a free class? Free, independent. This option is not even on the table. Each generation falls victim to slavery by first being enticed to the prospect of wealth, the joy of wealth, the freedom. You will need a good job, which will first require a good school. To get a school degree, you must often go into debt. You want to say hi, kitty cat? What's all that? What is that? Debt is a self-chosen slavery. If you are in debt, you are even less than poor. Consider a poor third-world man with a fishing boat. He has no money, but he is not in debt. He owns his hut and fishing boat. If he wants to eat, he will fish. He does not complicate his position with debt. To embark in a debt is to fasten your own ball and chain. Only when we recognize the problem can we look for the solution. What is another option? This book presents us with one. The only option they had in days of past, the option we have forgotten or taught to forget. In the following pages we will look at the very basic needs of life, such as land, shelter, water, and food. We all know we need these things, but how can we produce them ourselves? Chapter 2, Debt Freedom. In pursuit of learning, every day something is added. In the pursuit of Tao, every day something is dropped. Lao Tzu. Those in debt represent the new form of self-chosen poverty. You may not recognize these modern poor, as many of them drive brand new cars, live in elaborate homes, and eat more food than they need. Although saturated in luxury, if in debt, one must constantly serve this debt. The debt-immersed class of society is even less than poor. To be poor is to have zero, but to have less than zero is something else. High monthly payments and accumulated interest keep you paying or serving these debts, depriving humans of time and leisure. What you serve is your master. If you are in debt, you are usually serving a banker. The burden of debt is one that weighs heavy on the human condition, often resulting in illness, marital issues, depression, and, in some cases, suicide. The lending of money with excessive interest rates is called usury. Biblically, this was regarded as a sin and a great evil. If a nation faces hardship, it is largely due to the influence of debt. It is so deeply woven into the fabric of our society, we hardly see it as anything but normal. The current economic times cannot only be blamed on the corporations, bankers, and politicians. Most Americans are living beyond their means. The bankers and corporations offer us candy, and like eager children, we accept the credit card or the second mortgage. Unfortunately, we are not taught about evil, predatory lending. Tempting human traps. Most modern people are not producing anything for themselves, surrendering all their needs to be provided by others. In the end, we have no right to complain. We have only done this to ourselves. Now, completely out of touch with a life that was commonly practiced in our country as little as 50 years ago, we accumulate unnecessary debts, unable to see another option. Unable to feed ourselves, we must work and spend in order to eat. Soon this pattern becomes life. This serves to further remove us from who we are and what we are capable of. We have no time to consider such things as freedom. In the case of a mortgage, which literally means death gauge, we enter into a 30-year contract without having a 30-year plan. We assume the economy will not change, our income will be stable, and our health in top condition. This is truly a myth. A glimpse of any nation's history will show nothing as stable. All nations suffer economic, environmental, and political ups and downs. Before you can begin living free, you must surrender debt and the idea of its necessity in your life. First the credit card, next car payments, and finally the 30-year mortgage. Most time, home buyers are shocked to find that after 30 years, due to accumulated interest, they will have paid 2 to 3 times the amount that they bought the home for. In short, that means you bought one house for yourself and at least one more for the bank. Both of these homes could be yours by avoiding this scam. Do you want to work for the bankers for 2/3 of your life? It comes down to instant gratification. If you are committed to avoiding debt, you will build a home in 1 to 5 years. You could simply start with one room, a bathroom, and a small kitchen. A home can be built with as little as the cost of rent for a year. And that means $6,000 to $10,000 for most. $6,000 to $12,000 for $600 to $1,000 a month rent. From here, you can add one room at a time as your family grows. If you want instant gratification or an immediate home via mortgage, you will have to wait 30 years for that same enjoyment. You will have been enslaved for 30 years before the bank gives you full possession of your home. When providing one's own housing, food, and water, there is little need for debt. In the independent living model, one has little to no bills. One keeps all of their income. By avoiding chosen debt enslavement, one needs to work less to keep up with the high and rising cost of living, less affected by the ups and downs of Wall Street, politics, and the falling dollar value. We are left to enjoy the lives the way we choose, our lives. The first step toward freedom involves eliminating your debt. Debt is the new word for slavery. Before you can make the changes you want in life, you must have the ability to keep all, if not most, of your hard-earned money. With this done, you can begin to create the kind of life you dream. Your well-being does not depend on debt, but is actually hindered by it. Do all in your power to eliminate it, and you'll be on your way to living free and avoiding enslavement. Chapter 3, Off-Grid Land. A person of Tao follows earth. Earth follows heaven. Heaven follows Tao. Tao follows its own nature. Lao Tzu. The high price tag on land is and has been one of the greatest tragedies of modern times. Now, so far removed from the old ways, it is hard to imagine a time when one could wander out in the wilderness and build a modest home. A time before we chopped our planet up into territories and boundaries and sold her by the square foot. Who had the right to do this? Who had the right to displace and kill so many people who had lived here before? Finally, who continues to deprive the current people of the same soil? No longer was man free to move about the land, hunting and gathering. Fences, private property signs, and laws are now paid the respect previously given to the earth and her creatures. So, the idea of ownership and boundaries replaced simply being and moving on the land. Shortly after our country's inception, most land became out of financial reach to the common man. This is partly due to the constant inflation of the nation's currency, which weakens our purchasing power. Even Henry David Thoreau in the 1850s had never purchased the land where he lived. He wrote the famed classic Walden about living in nature. He built a small house on the edge of a pond and grew a small garden. The land had belonged to his wealthy friend and author, Emerson. Thoreau had considered purchasing 1 acre for the price of $8.08. This was double the cost he had spent to build his home, and he considered it too expensive. Henry was my personal inspiration for living in nature. I first read his book in high school and was changed. I found the ideas of native peoples alive and well in this man, who lived 150 years before me. He had only lived in the woods for 2 years before finally returning to the city. There was a time when some states in America still allowed you to claim a piece of land. In some parts of the world, this may still be possible. Typically, if living in America, one should purchase a piece of land. This is the first step toward freedom and the high and rising cost of living. Land is the foundation of our life. Without the ownership of even a small piece, we will pay a high price tag on our God-given life. Our life will become a burden. Without land, you are homeless and forced to rent. If you rent, you will gain nothing and only act to serve the landlord. If you buy a home, you will serve the bankers with enough financial interest to buy another home or two. Both renting and borrowing in order to purchase is financial slavery. Every year of rent or mortgage payments is equal to the purchase of a piece of land, or the cost of building a small home. For example, if one paid $1,000 per month, which is what we pay, on rent or mortgage, in 1 year you will have paid $12,000. This amount will buy you 5 to 40 acres all over the country and world. The same amount is about what it costs to build a 1,000 square foot home. I bought my first piece of land when I was 21 years old. I paid $500 for a quarter acre in Utah, a place I was virtually unfamiliar with. I went straight to the county to obtain a building permit when I was told the minimum land requirement was half an acre. Needless to say, I was devastated. The following year I went to a land tax auction in the same county and successfully purchased 18 acres for $1,500. Many countries in several states have auctions in which land is sold for cheap. Though it can be risky, you may pay pennies on the dollar, but there are no guarantees. I recommend buying your land in the classic way. This will allow you to be more selective, something auctions offer little promise of. Be sure you can legally build on the property. Make sure you have legal access or a right of way. Be careful of subdivisions as they are often loaded with restrictions, but in some cases these may appeal. These are things you don't want to find out after purchasing your property. I have seen 5 to 10 acre parcels selling all over the country for $1,000 per acre. Do your own searches for land, as realtors will try to sell you overpriced land. I prefer a free real estate search engine on the internet or as a phone app. Typically, one must purchase at least 5 acres to begin to see this price breakdown. 1 acre lots are seldom reasonably priced, often selling for the same price as 5 acres. 5 to 10 acres for $10,000 is a fair price and readily available. And I've done some searching of my own in Oregon and in other states, and it is available. There is land, $6,000 for a few acres. It is roughly what this is saying. Maybe slightly more expensive now because it's 7 years later. Depending on where in the country you live, that price range may put you 15 minutes to an hour out of a major city. Unless you can afford it, don't spend more than $10,000 on your land. I discriminate very little with land and enjoy flat desert valleys to forest-covered mountains. Choose your land after first choosing your community. This is a subject that deserves more attention, but for now it should simply be considered. It is something I gave little thought to until 5 years of off-grid living. Unless you think you might be a hermit, as I did, select a place with a like-minded community. Another good option is to buy a piece of land with a small group of friends. 6 friends investing $5,000 will not only get you a nice piece of land, but an instant community as well. And if anyone is interested in doing this with us, let me know. We are very introspective, quiet, not needing lots of social interaction people, but if you're interested in looking into the possibility, let me know. Chapter 4, Off-Grid Shelter. We pierce doors and windows to make a house, but is it not the space where there is nothing in which the usefulness of the house depends? Lao Tzu. When on the topic of housing, we should first consider the late architect Frank Lloyd Wright's philosophy of function before form. Let's look at the function of a home. We need a place that will keep us warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Also, a place of protection from the elements, such as wind, rain, snow, and excessive sunlight. Some other functions of a home include a place to cook, eat, sleep, and spend our leisure time. The teepee, home to the Native Americans, served all of these functions. I recommend building your home to save time and money, also to avoid the scam of a 30-year mortgage. As mentioned before, you can do it piece by piece, starting with one room, a bathroom, and kitchen. My philosophy is building it one board at a time. This should be done as a last resort, however. At this rate, it took me about 3 years to build my home. A friend of mine built a home one paycheck at a time and was finished in a year. He even hired contractors to do portions of the work. If you bought one piece of wood every day, imagine what you could create in a year. But again, I don't recommend it. Alternative housing can offer you affordability and quality seldom found with conventionally built homes. For example, I use only screws, as opposed to less secure nails used in conventional building. Remember, alternative does not have to be weird, only different from the standard, which is outdated. Among the most helpful books I've found include Shelter and The Good House book. Both offer examples of homes from all over the world. Most homes, from mansion to teepee, require little more than 2 individuals to build. A home does not need to cost more than $10,000. In Mother Earth News, I saw plans for a $5,000 cabin. It was a small house they had priced down to the nail. Although I still advocate the teepee as a practical and functional means of housing, let's observe some more modern yet still affordable options. Most build a home and later install a means of heating and cooling, fighting with outdoor temperatures year-round. Building your home underground will keep your home from freezing in the winter and overheating in the summer. I suggest building your home underground. It is my favorite and the way most animals survive in cold winters without spending a penny. A human version should have windows on the south side and ventilation. For centuries, man has used root cellars to store food they wish to keep from freezing. It only makes sense to give yourself the same luxury. Building a home is not as difficult as you may have been led to believe. The Geodesic Dome, for example, is assembled like Tinker Toys, providing one of nature's most resilient structures. If properly constructed, the dome can offer protection against natural disasters, including high winds and even earthquakes, which most homes would comparatively not withstand. The last time I priced materials to build one, less the finishing touches, it came out to $1 per square foot. That's 3,000 square foot home for around $3,000. Another home I suggest is made of straw bales. Due to their thick wall density, the straw bale home provides excellent insulation from the outside elements. In the end, the home is drywalled and stucco is applied to the exterior. It resembles a modern home while retaining its economic benefits. Its affordability also gives this method of building strong appeal. If you want the affordability but don't want to build, a manufactured home may be for you. They have come a long way, and I have seen them resemble log homes, Santa Fe Adobe-style homes, and of course conventional looks. I've seen small models, new and used, for as little as $10,000. There are some additional costs, but you get the picture. Not bad for instant gratification. Even in the case of manufactured housing, one should avoid financing. Similar to the case of the modern mortgage, financing these homes will force you to buy an extra one for the bank. Interest rates are the same, and you will usually pay at least twice on anything you finance. Keep away from these tempting and easy loans. If you do want to build, you should consider building with the native materials available on your land. If you are in a wooded area, consider building with native local wood, and if in an area with lots of stones, you may incorporate those into your design. If you are in the middle of the desert, you might import a bunch of used tires, filling them with available dirt while staggering them like bricks. In New Mexico, they build homes out of used tires called earth ships. They typically face the windows south and in the colder north side, and the colder north side of the home is buried with dirt. There is a good way to recycle while building cheap and energy-efficient homes. Once again, it is not very difficult with an extra pair of hands and a plan. Earthships and the work of pioneer Michael Reynolds are available online. Check out his free movie, Garbage Warrior. As for my option, I chose a combination of conventional building methods along with pre-manufactured. The manufactured part is the center of my home, a 20-foot camping trailer on a concrete foundation. On the north and south side, I built two additions. In one addition, a bathroom, kitchen, and wood-burning stove. The other addition is a bedroom, while the center portion is my living room. In short, an RV sandwiched between two conventionally built rooms. I lived in Colorado before moving to Utah. While there, friends and I built a small cabin on a 5-acre piece of land. We cut down pine trees for the frame, a concrete foundation for a floor, and finally a greenhouse attached to the south side. The greenhouse was our only heater. It let light and warmth in all day long, soaking into the concrete floor. Throughout the night, this heat would slowly radiate upwards from the concrete, keeping the house well above the outdoor freezing temperature. One could enhance this technique with 55-gallon tanks filled with water. Allowed to bake in the sun, the tanks act as thermal heat storage throughout the day. In the end, be realistic to what is possible, yet be playful like a child building a fort, free like a bird building a nest. In fact, you could build a big upside-down bird's nest and apply stucco to the exterior. Chapter 5. Off-grid water. Nothing under heaven is more yielding than water. Yet, when it attacks things hard and resistant, none of them can prevail. The yielding conquers the resistant, and the soft conquer the hard. A fact known by all men, yet utilized by none. Lao Tzu. Water is essential for survival and a key element necessary for independent living. It may be the only thing worth tapping into the grid for. Unlike food, water is needed daily. Human beings can survive for long periods without food, but without water, dehydration will begin damaging your body in only days. Fortunately, water is abundant on this planet. We only need to ensure the purity and access. If the water is not pure, we must filter, or in extreme cases, distill it. Distilling is a process in which water is heated to create steam. The steam is then cooled and reclaimed as ultra-pure water. Distilling is a replication of the Earth's rain cycle mechanics and can be homemade using the sun as heat. Commercial units start around $300. In less extreme cases, a water purifier should be adequate. This involves passing the water through cleansing matter before using. A great homemade system involves cutting the bottom off a plastic bottle and with bottle upside down, down stuffing with mold-resistant polyester fabric, activated charcoal granules, fine sand, coarse sand, fine gravel, large gravel, and top with a coffee filter. Pass your water through the coffee filter on top and use a second bottle to collect the pure water below as it passes through. A well is a good option for tapping into the earth's fresh water. In some cases it is naturally forced to the top, which is called an artesian well. After having attained land and shelter, one could invest in a well if your property has no other water sources. Typically these waters are as pure as one could ask for and require little filtration. Be careful with wells if you are located around polluting industry, as this may compromise water purity. Such has been the case in areas of energy exploration, waste storage, and power plants. Rivers and streams are a great means of water facilitation. Even if a river only runs part of the year, enough water could be filtered and stored for your seasonal needs in a large tank. This tank should provide your water needs till the river or stream flows again next season. I would suggest distilling this type of water, as we can never be certain of what lies upstream. If no wells or rivers are an option, I would harvest the water that falls from the sky. Harvesting water is done by gathering every inch of precipitation from your roof surface as it rains or snows. This water runs down the rooftops and is collected by rain gutters that flow into holding tanks. Finally, this water can be used to shower, garden, do laundry, and drink. Although it has already been distilled by nature, it wouldn't hurt to filter this water when used for drinking. Most areas have enough rainfall or snow to support most of your water needs if you're wise with your water usage. I have a small stream that flows through my property 3/4 of the year. I use it primarily to garden. I harvest rain and snow water for drinking. I filter the water to 0 parts per million. In a strong rainstorm, I harvest 150 gallons per hour. I have a 600-gallon tank in the ground for water storage, and I use an average of 10 gallons per day. 5 gallons to shower, and the rest for drinking, dishes, and toilet. I have found the modern toilet to be water wasteful. Toilets account for 75% of water usage in America. Most use 2 to 5 gallons per flush. As an alternative, I installed a camp trailer toilet which uses as little as a ½ gallon per flush. I still think this is excessive waste. Chapter 6. Off-grid food. And we're about halfway through this little book, so just a heads up. Page 43 of 90. Knowing other is intelligence, knowing the self is enlightenment. Conquering others is power, conquering the self is strength. Know what is enough and you'll be rich. Remain in the center and you'll always be at home. Die without dying and you'll endure forever. Lao Tzu. The ideal food source is natural organic food which can be produced by yourself. This not only provides you with the finest quality of nourishment, but also that you will not constantly pay for your sustenance. Growing food is something most Americans still did in this country as little as 50 years ago. Our ability to provide our own food as individuals is one of the greatest skills in human survival and optimum health. For year-round growing, a greenhouse is essential. A greenhouse allows one to control the environment on a small scale, producing food yields up to 4 times more than outdoor gardens. In a greenhouse, regardless of your geographic location, one could establish year-round vegetables, berries, and herbs. This food is medicine as well. Living self-sustainably, one would greatly benefit by planting fruit, nut, and maple trees. Nuts can be gathered and stored, and fruits can be dried or canned. The maples are for maple syrup production. In cooler, frost-bearing regions, some trees may include apple, peach, pear, plum, and apricot. In warmer climates, one might add citrus, avocado, olives, and even bananas. Make a list of food-bearing trees you would enjoy eating and find out which ones will grow in your area. If a tree doesn't tolerate your area's temperature, you might want to put it in a greenhouse. In a greenhouse, for example, an orange tree should maintain a controlled and manageable size in a large planter while bearing fruit in the appropriate season. We'll talk about we'll talk a little after the book is done, just a little bit. It may be some years before they produce a harvest, but when they do, it will have been well worth your effort. At an average of $1 per organic apple, the savings of growing this healing food loaded with natural vitamins A, B, and C cannot be overstated. Root vegetables are a great crop as they grow well in most areas. Along with their facility and growth, roots offer tremendous amounts of vitamins and minerals. When harvested and stored in cool, dry places, roots can keep for long periods of time, thus providing natural nourishment with a shelf life. This can be essential to survival while awaiting the return of the next growing season. For the preservation of roots, we need to look no further than our grandparents' method of past, the root cellar. Built into the earth, no larger than 6 by 6 square feet, the root cellar will preserve your roots and a host of other foods. Roots grow easily. Among the many roots, choices may include carrots, potatoes, beets, radish, garlic, and onions. In the greenhouse, one might grow echinacea or ginger root for its medicinal applications during flu season. Wheat may be grown very easily as it is a grass. Its kernels can be ground into flour to make bread. Rice can be grown in 5-gallon buckets by overwatering, thus creating a micro-swampland. Lettuce is an excellent plant as it grows hardy like a weed, often sprouting the following season downwind from places I planted it in previous seasons. Like the lettuce greens, the famed nuisance weed dandelion is also loaded with vitamins and minerals. Its greens can be eaten directly in salads or made into a tea, aiding in overall health. Many cultures still eat the dandelion greens to this day. The roots can be roasted and ground into a coffee-like tea or used for liver detoxification. Although I believe in a primarily vegetarian diet, a serving of meat is beneficial for the body from time to time. Meat and the belief that its consumption is the essential element of sustainability for the human being is a great untruth as we have been taught. Consider the same industries that feed you and profit from feeding you have created the standard food pyramid. How many servings of meat, dairy, and everything else you eat have been created based on corporate interest? The result of the recommended diets taught in school is illness and obesity. Companies will only provide you with what is profitable. It is simply the nature of a business to create a profitable product and a falsified need for it. This is done via marketing, and in the case of big business, marketing turns into the educational system via government. All over the world, for thousands of years, people have and continue to survive without meat. Even in the animal kingdom, gorillas feed their massive muscles primarily on greens. We accept the false necessity of animal consumption, and we hardly pay any notice to what follows: the enslavement and breeding of all consumable and ultimately profitable animals. This then fuels the persecution and eradication of all other animals that stand to interfere with this profit industry. Some of these animals that have been viewed as agricultural interference include wild horse, wolves, prairie dogs, and beavers. On a health level, meat, due to its lack of fiber, live cells, and enzymes, does not digest well in the human body. And I'm not condoning or denying any claims here, I'm just reading it. It tends to gather and putrefy in the crevices of the intestinal walls. Digestion will only be complicated when consumed with dairy, refined grains, and sweets. This leads to a series of ailments, including weight issues, low energy, and even cancer. To further the problem, large companies obsessed with profits will pump our future food full of hormones and antibiotics to make them grow quicker. The result is the consumer grows sicker, as over 28 different drugs eventually end up in our bodies after consuming meat. Excuse me. Amongst the meats, eggs are by far my favorite, providing high protein and easy digestibility. I have 3 hens and 1 rooster. Each hen lays 1 egg per day. I feed them 1 cup of sunflower seeds along with various wild bird seed twice a day. I also allow them free range for a few hours per day. This provides an opportunity to eat wild seed and bugs. The eggs are beautiful. One season, all my chickens were killed by my neighbor's dogs. For this reason, I now keep them in a fenced enclosure unless supervised. Free-range eggs are expensive when purchased. Their feed can be grown by yourself. With the greatest expense being the chicken coop, your small investment will provide a large return. Chickens are illegal in some cities and towns, hence another important reason for land ownership. So far, I have successfully grown potatoes, carrots, beets, cantaloupe, strawberries, garlic, and onions, to name a few. I planted apple, peach, and maple trees for future production. I am currently building a greenhouse. I still purchase food from the market, but in a greatly reduced fashion. Typically, I spend no more than $100 a month on food. In time, it will be $0. In the past few years, I have refined my diet to simple foods. In 1642, Sun Tzu Mo, a Chinese physician of the Tang dynasty, wrote, "A truly good physician first finds out the cause of the illness, and having found that, he first tries to cure it by food. Only when food fails does he prescribe medication." It is easy to grow food today, granted you've acquired the knowledge, seeds, land, and water. It's shameful we were not taught these real-life skills in school, empowered in one of the most basic necessities of life. Instead, we've handed over the job to massive corporations who seek only to profit from our dependence, selling us things we don't need. Appealing to our indulgences through marketing and propaganda, they seldom care about the human health and the result their products may pose. In the end, they can manipulate but never choose for us. It is up to us to become independent. It will never be endorsed by the media, as it threatens their very existence. Most of our needs can be provided by our own selves, liberating us of our voluntary enslavement by those who we give our money to. Thoreau wrote that 6 weeks of labor provided a year's worth of food. With the proper investments in food-producing systems, such as greenhouses, fruit trees, berry patches, and chicken coops, we can begin to reduce our dependence. We can avoid the complication presented with food in these modern, changing times. Not only will you benefit health-wise, but also financially and spiritually. You will be sure your food and your life will be free of chemicals and potential foodborne illness that threaten the commercial food industry every day. When my hens are laying eggs, I am happy. Fresh vegetables in the garden only compound this joy. There is no need to make money and spend it to survive. The earth can take care of us as long as we take care of her. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to leave home for days at a time. I used to always be tied to supermarkets and restaurants. It doesn't mean that I won't earn money or go out occasionally. I only stress that it feels good not having to. Chapter 7. Off-Grid Waste. One who accepts the dung of the nation becomes master of soil and sustenance. Lao Tzu. On the subject of waste, you will most likely need to install a septic system. Cost will run about $5,000. This is the law. These systems work fine if they are kept from freezing and not overburdened. One could build an outhouse, although it is usually illegal. A septic system is an on-site sewer treatment plant. I have a septic tank. This method of waste disposal offers no return or benefit once the toilet is flushed. This is similar to conventional treatment plants. Waste is treated as a burden. In a self-sufficient model, we naturally want to mimic the earth in our living practices. This means everything has a purpose. In nature, organic waste is the very nourishment of the plant kingdom. We only need to team up with the right members of the plant kingdom to help solve the problem of waste disposal. In fact, our waste does not have to be a problem, but rather a liberating factor in the self-sufficiency model. In this model, I point to David Bloom, who wrote a thing called Alcohol Can Be a Gas. The book outlines the principles of turning all plant fiber into alcohol. This alcohol can then be used as fuel for running automobiles, cooking, and home power generation. In short, the best plant for making alcohol is the cattail. You know, the wiener on a stick, the one that grows in swampy areas. And finally, what does the cattail love the most? Raw sewage. All treatment plants around the world could become fuel farms. Henry Ford's first vehicles ran from plant-based fuel or alcohol. During Prohibition and the outlaw of alcohol, he was forced to convert his vehicles to a petroleum-based fuel, gasoline. Gasoline is nothing more than a toxic petroleum-based alcohol. Interesting how this chapter on waste now develops into the subject of agriculture and energy. A problem turns into a solution. A balance that our planet has dealt with for a long time. Also, a balance that profit-motivated individuals threaten every day. Such an example is that of nuclear power and the waste it produces for hundreds of years after it's used. Another example is the petroleum industry. First, they use millions of gallons of fresh water in the process of oil extraction. This water is then mixed with toxic chemicals and injected deep into the Earth's crust, where it then further threatens the underground freshwater aquifers. Double jeopardy for the planet and the generations of life that follow this temporary monetary victory for a small few. Another method of dealing with waste is provided by Michael Reynolds in his book series Earth Ships. The waste system is run through a series of ponds with various fish and plants. By the time the water reaches the last pond, it is free of impurities. Finally, a simple and fairly inexpensive option is a composting toilet. Starting at around $1,500, these self-contained toilets turn your waste into compost that is ready to apply to your garden. Chapter 8. Off-Grid Power. The 5 colors blind the eye. The 5 tones deafen the ear. The 5 flavors overwhelm the palate. Fancy things get in the way of one's growth. Relinquish what is without. Cultivate what is within. Live for your center, not your senses. Lao Tzu. In our quest towards off-grid living, after having accomplished the basic needs of housing, food, water, and waste, you may want to consider the luxury of power and lights. I say luxury, for this is not an absolute necessity for survival. Around 3/4 of the world's population survives without power today. It is definitely something we can and have lived without for centuries. I have found that my foremost need for power is light, cell phone charging, water pumping, and the laptop I now type these words on. As the sun goes down, we naturally begin to tire with the lessening of light. When we sleep, the darkness triggers a gland in the brain to release melatonin. This naturally occurring antioxidant is then used to repair the body as we sleep. Studies have shown that not only light, but also electromagnetic frequencies can signal the brain to stop producing melatonin. This means your brain doesn't know the difference between light, your cell phone, or any other electronic wave-emitting device. In short, the more electronic devices and electricity coursing through the walls of your home, the sicker and less rested you will feel. In the early 1900s, a man named Nikola Tesla was creating free energy systems that are kept from the world to this day. 10 years after creating the world's first power plant at Niagara Falls, Tesla invented a unit which produced unlimited power for free. With no moving parts, it produced power using the energy in the air itself. In the early 1900s, Tesla applied for a patent on this machine and was refused, even though he had a working model. The refusal was based on the inability to prove the source of the power. In the 1950s, a man by the name of Henry Murray of Salt Lake City picked up the pieces where Tesla had left off. Henry had also created a working free energy device that was featured in the Salt Lake Tribune. When applying for the patent, he too was greeted with the same response by the U.S. Patent Office, again based on the inability to prove the power source. His family still pushes the case today. Fortunately, there are other free energy systems that broke through the system, such as solar panels, wind, and water generators. Even a gas generator is often more reliable than grid power in emergencies. I used one until I put together my solar system. Of the least expensive options for free power, solar is by far the best. Power is mainly used to drive electronics, machinery, and lights. It is less a need for survival as one of facility in the grind of daily life. One needn't spend more than $1,000 on a good solar power system. This will provide you with the power to run lights, a radio, TV, a laptop, a coffee maker, or power tools. These could not, however, all be run at once. Living self-sustainably, most people would be satisfied with a few lights and appliances, especially when they receive no monthly bills. Solar power systems can easily be put together piece by piece and can always be added to. I am happy with my small solar power system. The cost outweighing the production is truly a myth. Here is the 4-step system. First, I have a 180-watt solar panel which costs $300. These get cheaper by the day if ordered online, but physical retailers overcharge. Next, the solar panel will run to what is typically called a charge controller, which costs me $100. The model I purchased is a 30-amp style. The charge controller then connects to the battery, positive to positive, negative to negative. The battery I purchased is a deep cycle marine and RV battery. I bought it at the auto parts store for $150. It is a common lead-acid battery of heavy-duty construction. However, it is worth mentioning the next battery I buy will be an AGM battery or gel-type battery. Traditional batteries which contain water can freeze, lessening their performance. AGM batteries contain gel and will not freeze or put out harmful gas vapors. A deep cycle AGM battery usually costs around $250 and will last twice as long. Finally, the battery will be connected to a power inverter. The purpose of the power inverter is to convert the battery energy into usable, ready to plug anything into power. DC power into AC power. DC stands for direct current and can be used for smaller devices such as lights and even cell phones. AC power or alternating current powers most common appliances and electronics. I have a 1500 watt power inverter which costs around $400. That's it. For less than $1,000, this solar system has impressed me. In the day, even when cloudy, the system is strong and could run all appliances at once. These include a laptop, a water pump, lights, and a stereo system. In the evening, I am rational with the power, using only what I need. I usually run a few appliances or electronics for 3 to 4 hours throughout the evening. If I run the battery too low, the power inverter will shut off. However, lights running on DC will continue to work even with low battery power. When it comes to power and lights, there are many creative options available. If you need more power, add another battery to the system along with another solar panel. As always, assess your needs, do your homework, and be willing to experiment. Chapter 9. Off-Grid Community. Just as the world can reveal itself as particles, the Tao can reveal itself as human beings. Though world and particles aren't the same, neither are they different. Though cosmic body and your body aren't the same, neither are they different. Lao Tzu. In the end, an extra pair of hands can go further than any power source or tool can. When people come together in a common goal, great things are possible. This is a topic I gave little thought to and now find very important. I began my off-grid life when I was 30 years old. By the time I was 35, I had completed my home. I was now growing food, and my chickens were laying eggs. I had access to several water sources and the appropriate filters for each source. My solar power system was finally large enough to power all of my needs both day and night. I felt confident I could survive without the grid. If there was an emergency, I would be fine. I was also free. If I stopped working, I would not be in danger of losing my home, water, or power. What was missing now was community. People to share with, people interested in similar values. Unfortunately, I had not placed community in my off-grid plan. I had just been in pursuit of cheap land. I will now recommend one buys land within 10 or 20 miles from a town or community of like-minded individuals. Another option is to create communities of like-minded individuals. A group of friends and family investing in a large common piece of land and helping each other build homes. Each family only needs an acre or two. Finally, creating a central location of 5 to 10 acres for community gardens, parks, and general gathering points of recreation and leisure. The community as a group subdevelops a larger piece of land, building a neighborhood together, yet retaining individual off-grid independence. There are no obligations to the community once the infrastructure is complete. Any participation at that point should be voluntary or based on one's use of the community commodities. Such politics can become complicated, which is why a community should be set up in a similar fashion to a modern-day subdevelopment. These developments usually include a homeowners association which has laid out certain rules and limitations. This could also be a simple signed contract that each community member agrees to in advance. A contract that represents the values of the community. In all honesty, I don't know the answer to this one. Community and politics are tricky. I assumed forget about it until now. I see the importance through my experience. My land is not in an area where the community shares my values. It is dominated by the petroleum and agriculture industry, two enslaving, profit-motivated industries. Far from off-grid values, these poison-spewing industries destroy the soil, air, and water with little concern to human or animal well-being. Oil rigs, pumping units, and agriculture surrounds my land. Shortly after completing my home, they began to drill and pump oil on all 4 sides of my land. There is now a road less than 100 feet from my house my peace and tranquility has been under constant attack, as several dozen vehicles, both large and small, whiz past my home daily. In this area, weekly oil spills, explosions, and poor air quality are a constant. It is a classic case of big industry exploiting a small, job-dependent community. Give them jobs, exploit the resources, and move on. Sadly, people will do almost anything for a job when living on the grid. I will preserve my land for as long as I live, however. In time, I will purchase another piece of land. It will be near or a part of a like-minded community. A community that does not damage the earth for $1. One that does not kill creatures for sport. And most importantly, one that is of a kind nature, honoring the well-being of fellow humans. Chapter 10. Modern Slavery. When the world practices Toa, you misspelled it. When the world practices Tao, horses fertilize the fields. When the world ignores Tao, horses are bred for war. There is no greater calamity than desire, no greater curse than greed. Know that enough is enough, and you'll always have enough. Lao Tzu. It is said the average American works 3 months out of the year to pay for their federal taxes. Income tax was intended for corporations and should not be imposed on the hourly labor of men. Taxes were to be imposed on corporate profit. Labor is not profit. Although unconstitutional, you can be imprisoned for not paying taxes. Where does most of this tax money go? The Federal Reserve Bank. This presumed federal, yet 100% private bank produces money out of thin air. Next, the money is loaned to the government and smaller private banks who finally loan it to us. The Federal Reserve charges interest on this printed currency and builds debt on the American back, estimated in the trillions. This is ultimately money that can never be paid back. This constant growing debt provides these bankers with good business as they profit and earn interest on every dollar printed in world circulation today. It is in their best interest when government, corporations, and individuals spend, loaning trillions on war efforts, bailing out private banks, insurance groups, and auto corporations only to pass on the debt to the American people. Collecting enormous sums of money from the accumulated interest from the money they made on a federal photocopier. The Federal Reserve Bank has hijacked America. They are beyond the law and will continue to bleed America until the people tell their elected officials to abolish this parasitic, non-federal institution. The need to spend your money is your ball and chain to the system. It is the very thing that keeps this illegitimate monetary institution going. We discussed how we work for the government 3 months out of the year via taxes. Next, we add rent or mortgage, followed by utilities, vehicle payments, insurance, gasoline, and food. What is left for you, and who are you really working for? You work for these institutions who take your money each day, month, and year. You survive by paying these institutions. You have been led to believe they are necessary in your life, and that you can't survive without them. You can't produce your own power, grow your own food, and build your own house. All lies. The simple truth is that you can. One should always be careful of how their money is spent. Every dollar is a vote, holding up a platform or group of people and their interests. We've been conditioned to believe we need so much. To the contrary, when our basic needs are met, there is little need to spend or take out loans. America is plagued and infected with consumerism. Corporations have a strong hold on the media, the school systems, and the government as a whole. We see proof of corporate power when a pharmaceutical company's drugs kills thousands and the makers do not sit behind bars. Even worse, they continue making new drugs. This can occur only as long as people are willing to support these companies with their dollars. Even our politicians who vote for wars and murder are kept in office with our vote or lack of it. These great powers don't have your best interests in mind, only their own. They only want your obedience and money. Your money is the sum of your energy. If all of your time is spent making money, and all of your money is spent on bills, you are a slave. Modern slavery is voluntary. The modern slave thinks he is free, housing and feeding himself. Yet all of his money is spent, and he continues to work a job that is less than pleasing. He pays for all the things he could produce on his own. The quality is worse, and it is expensive. What is needed is to remove the collar and leash. Renounce your dependence on everything unnecessary. A revolution only needs to happen within. Take control of every aspect of your life. With land, shelter, water, and food, we can eliminate the monthly bill for survival. We can eliminate self-slavery and the expenditure of our time, money, energy, and ultimately health. We are slaves to government and corporations. We are their commodities, bought, sold, and traded. Your birth certificate is national stock. Put the masters to rest. Become a free human. When all one's needs are self-provided, one should not need to earn or spend more than $10,000 per year. The solution is simple. Stop supporting the big platforms. Stop paying for basic survival. Keep what you earn by providing your own needs. While embarked in a life of independent living, you free yourself and ultimately the world. I enjoy luxuries and don't feel they must be sacrificed in order to live off the grid. If anything, off-grid living will free up your money and time so you are able to enjoy life. I believe in doing what is right as opposed to what everyone else is doing. My luxury is time, health, and leisure. I believe, as the Buddha said, desire is the root to all suffering. In this technological era, we cannot keep up with the latest and greatest gizmo. If we try to keep up with this modern rat race, we will live life in a constant state of desire. On the other hand, off-grid living is about finding joys in simple living, a formula that has supported man since the beginning of time. That's it. That's the book. And then we have 5 pages. No, we don't have 5 pages. A couple pages. About the author. This looks like his house. Or one of. John Venezia currently lives in the eastern Utah desert with a cat, dog, and 4 chickens. Along with painting and drawing, he enjoys reading, gazing at nature, gardening, and listening to beautiful sounds. He believes we are all artists, our lives are the canvas. The trick is being aware that we are always creating our reality moment to moment. His art is a reflection of the city and nature, different worlds in which we all live somewhere in between. Okay. That's that. Jeff Sekarak, he's the one that promoted this book. Later on, I will go search out this person who wrote this book and see if I can get him on the show. That would be pretty cool. And Let's see what you guys are saying. Hey Steve, Nigel, T, Silent Hunter. Witness the drone swarm appear. Revolution. This would not be about preserving the MK Ultra drones. This would be about living. Water is feminine. It will flow off your roof and down your neighbor's pipe. Not HOAs. Okay. So, regardless of what the world is doing or if they're going insane, I'm getting land, and I'm gonna, well, we are getting land, and we're gonna go be on the land. And yes, I'm aware that ownership is a joke, but it's part of the joke that society is playing right now. So, we will do it for now. Until the NPCs either get rid of themselves or dissolve or what have you. It is a pretty decent shit show going on out there right now. Homeowner associations, yeah, they can be shitty, but if you build your own, it's not a homeowner association. It's 3 or 4 people regulating the land. And yes, everything repeats, and yes, all of the same problems would eventually come up if you started doing the same thing and trying to make your own. Oh, let's try building a police station and a church and a blah blah, everything we have here, but let's just do it ourselves and assume something different will happen. No, it's not going to happen different. It's all the same thing. But living within your own means and not having all kinds of extra bullshit and not getting into tons of debt is good. Very much so. So again, if you would like a session with me after this, or after you watch this this video, send me an email. Again, this is it. I hope that's not backwards for you guys, but it's GAPAWA1985@gmail.com. And thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening to that little book. Go buy it on Amazon if you'd like. It's 99 cents for Kindle. Very affordable. And I'll see if I can get that guy on the show someday. Alright, that's all for today, folks. Take care. Peace.